This is Common Sense Generation. Common Sense Generation. Welcome. You're watching Common Sense Generation. My name is Kądzielska-Koper, and we talk about coming Polish presidency in European Union and the economic aspects of this time. Professor Artur Nowak-Far is our guest today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Professor, you are a lawyer, but also economist. So you can look at what's going on right now with Polish presidency from the economic perspective, which after all is always extremely important because ideas are one thing, but how to finance them is the other part. What are the biggest economic challenges for our presidency?
Well, it's not only the challenge to the presidency, because the presidency is what it is. That is the organizational solution rather than anything else. But the challenge is the cost of energy. The challenge is the lack of adequate innovation in the European economy, and just 1/3 of the presidency, as it is, would not be able to solve those problems, but will be able to contribute to the solutions and would be able definitely to trigger some processes, longer-term processes, which will be taken over by the forthcoming, thirds of the presidency, that is the Danish part of the presidency and the Cypriot part of the presidency, and which then will be taken over by the forthcoming trio, or presidential trio, some other member states.
Wonderful. So looking at the economy, we are in a situation when there's two crises. So the pandemic and the war in Ukraine showed to Europe that we have to start producing things here, even though we gave up this production for much a long time. So ammunition, for example, which all is very costly, and it also requires our economies and policies to shift to build it up again, because at the beginning of the war in Ukraine, it was a moment when member states just actually didn't have this ammunition at all, even to share. We needed to find places to actually produce it.
Well, that's true, but the entire picture is a little bit more complicated and has a global scale. It does not relate just to the conflict, just to the Russian aggression on Ukraine. It relates to a deglobalization of a type, because globalization, as we know it, was based on the idea that all the value chains of variety of industries, variety of enterprises can be spread over the globe, regardless of the political strains, and they will be able to reap off the best of the best out of the possibilities already existing in various countries of the world. Well, the conflict in Ukraine and also the conflict over Taiwan had shown that we are not really able to pursue that type of or continue that type of a development, and that we'll have to think about our resilience. And thinking of our resilience means that we'll have to think of the cost of transportation, and even more so about the political risks which are connected with the too lengthy, chain of value chain. Extended from Europe to China to name it. Well, they are very, I would say, vulnerable. And therefore, nowadays, we are observing something really, really important. And, that is the process of bringing those capacities back to Europe, developing them afresh from the scratch, basically, as you have said already, and trying to redefine those value chains in such a way that the whole value chain is placed overseas, offshore, but in the amicable jurisdictions. Not somewhere where you may think, okay, today I enjoy a good treatment from the local government, but whatever happens, it's all gone, and your investment is gone as well. So that is a very lengthy process. That would be a very lengthy process and a very costly one. But we should, in Europe, consider that process to be an investment, a worthwhile investment in our own resilience, in our own defense, in our own, I'd say, bargaining power in the world.
So making Europe great again. But I'm just a little bit joking about, but looking at the fact that in what you mentioned in current geopolitical situation, which is of course a huge conflict of two civilizations, of American and Chinese civilization, which we still live under the hegemony of US, but this hegemony is lacking in certain areas. And what the future president of US, Donald Trump, is all the time pressuring Europe is you have to be independent. You have to be, and I guess Europe has been independent for a very long time in different spheres, and it has a capacity and abilities to be so when it stays united, and when it is united, as with all the member states, it is a power which has a voice. Separate states, national states, don't really have a voice on a national sphere, but as a union, yes, as a third power, then to talk, but also to protect our values, which are, as we mentioned, not obvious, and looking at what can happen in the Straits of the Chinese Sea between China and Taiwan, and all the agendas of the Chinese government right now are about reuniting the whole Chinese islands, and it means reuniting Taiwan. Europe has to find itself somewhere in it, and this is a challenge.
Yeah, it is. Let's start from your first remark, which I find quite interesting and very much, to the point. That the forthcoming president of the United States, Donald Trump, wants Europe to stay independent, to be able to, cope with the challenges independently of the United States. I do not see anything wrong about it. I think it's a very positive challenge, which is apt to trigger processes which are important for Europe, and which are very much feeding up the slogan you formulated here: "Make Europe great again."
We should have the hats on. I didn't think about it.
Something like that, yes. It's really important. The problem is in the approach of the forthcoming president of the United States, because he wants also to make America great again according to his standards. And his standards are really sort of based on the business model, that is, and not win-win model, but rather lose-win, zero game, sort of a paradigm, where he wants Europe to pay for the American development and whatever America will offer to Europe.
let's not forget that we all the time paying for American development. We are paying for American development while using most of apps here and even in Europe, while taking taxi or taking Uber, this is paying money to California.
Absolutely. And even if we use the dollar as the currency for storing our savings or whatever, yeah, that's true.
It is adding to the element. What I recently learned with astonishment is the fact there is none big shopping center in Poland which would be in Polish hands, and even in the biggest one in the capital city in Warsaw are American.
Well, that's okay. That actually is a good illustration of how vibrant American business has been. Okay, and if we want to be as vibrant as the Americans or the American industry or American economy, we'll simply have to watch carefully what they are doing and try to imitate as much as we can. Okay, I do not see a major problem here when it comes to the process of, getting to the situation or getting out of a situation. But what worries me is the approach that is artificial. And, the artificial game will be triggered by Mr. Trump because he wants to increase the tariffs. Increase of tariffs is not about being vibrant. It's not about being business-minded and simply better in business, so that you will open up your shopping centers in Poland, and all the shopping centers will be in the American hands and not in Polish hands. That is a result of how vibrant, how willing, how enthusiastic you are about your own business. But when it comes to tariffs, no. That's not about your qualities. It's only about the government, which now thinks that, the tariffs are not good are now good for me. Before, when I was expanding and trying to sell as much stuff as possible and get, of course, cheap stuff, which is needed for my production in my country, I was so much for the liberalization of trade. Now I'm not. That's not very fair, and that's not about the fair competition. And that is a very dangerous policy. Whenever it would be a policy of a larger scale, because it will trigger some response from all the other countries in the world.
Well, of course, if U.S. is going to impose tariffs on China, on Mexico, and even on Europe, then Europe unfortunately has to impose tariffs as well.
Not necessarily, but it will have to respond somehow to it, okay? And that would lead also to the redesign, unduly unnecessary, undesired, redesign of value chains. Because instead of, making them natural and calculating them on the natural data, you'll have to include all of a sudden, the tariffs, which would be imposed by the American government. That makes no sense.
This is Common Sense Generation. If you like this channel, please subscribe, share, and comment. Your voice really matters. And it also, what we didn't underline, but it's an important part, is the fact that Polish presidency starts in a moment when the new presidency starts in U.S. And what, of course, the new president we're going to do with his best buddy, Elon Musk, is very hard to predict, because one thing is what they say, the other thing what actually they're going to do, and how effective are they going to be in those changes. This is a big question mark here, but it colludes together. So we are uniting the members of European Union, and also somehow we'll have to address what will happen overseas in in US, and in the same moment waiting to respond what Beijing will answer to those changes.
Well, and also to some extent it depends on, in the short run, I think, from what Russia would do. Russia does not count in those, those big pictures, because they are rather, a minor ally to the Chinese, but they occupy a large part of the globe, and unfortunately or fortunately, they are on the way between China and Europe. So they can stop the trade between, at least the surface trade between, or surface transportation of goods between China and Europe for some time, which would be a nuisance. But then it will have, in my opinion, a tremendous impact on, the Sino-Russian relations, because all of a sudden you will observe it very soon. The Chinese will press the Russians to stop those things, those nuisance, and the Russians will have to bow to Beijing again and again and again, which of course will be quite interesting to observe, and which would trigger other processes.
And which is important from our perspective, that we still have a border with Russia, which is the Kaliningrad here, and not to forget about it. But just also the fact that geographically we are much closer, and geographics makes a difference. We sometimes want to forget about it, but it makes an impact. Whenever things are further away, our power of imposing our interest on it is smaller. It's getting weaker with the anyone who experienced a long distance relationship knows this, that it is a challenge.
Yeah, marriages collapse.
And so, and our marriage with China is not with Russia is not a marriage, but we want them as far as possible. So of course this leads in our interest. But we touched a lot of extremely important stuffs and elements, which I think gives a good picture to all of our viewers. What is going on? What's how important this time coming January of 2025 actually is to the world, and how many small and big challenges are coming there. But so the economic let's say, difficulties are to address, as you said, is first of all is the production. Secondly, are the new technologies.
Mm-hmm. And the two are the most important, because the cost of production, or the cost of energy, is a very important element of the production. And when we talk about technology, well, technology is quite important for the economic development for Europe. In the traditional economic model, you will have like two drivers for the development. One driver would be your demography, and the other one is technology. Well, in Europe, we know that we are really bad about demography. Okay.
Yeah.
We are rather shrinking, not expanding, and we are also, because of it, relying on people who are coming to Europe from elsewhere in the world,
accumulating talent. But this is something
that's okay. But it's
it is
not
extremely
enough.
important.
Yeah, but it's not enough. Even that, it is not enough. It makes up for for something, or for somebody who is already struggling, and so that the problems would not become bigger, but rather they are as they are. Technology is quite important, and Europe should do its utmost in order to push through the innovation agenda, to use its wealth, which is quite significant, private and public, to finance that effort because, well, you do not have innovation without the monetary effort. We can afford it. That's the most important part of it. And, well, it's now the time to mobilize public and especially private resources so that those resources will fund the effort for the technological effort, for the innovation. When I'm saying it, I'm also, referring to the Polish presidency program, which is about it. But also, I would like to bring your attention and the attention of our viewers to the fact that it reflects on a very important program document, which is Mario Draghi report. Which exposes all those weaknesses, challenges, and tries to define the solutions. Well, the Polish presidency, I think, borrows a lot from that program. Especially when it comes to the idea of promoting the new technologies, also in it, the technologies which are based on the AI technology,
But
and
this
so on and
also
so
comes
on.
to the question of energy resources, because those new technologies, which we, especially AI, and requires huge amount of energy. And those amount of energy right now, ChatGPT uses as much energy as Bitcoin. So what American government is doing, there is selling to the private companies small so atomic electricity, atomic factories, in order to keep them going and develop. This is so much energy consuming, but it seems like, unfortunately, this run is about so artificial intelligence.
Well, that is true, but all the development, economic development means that your capacity increases to produce, to serve, to help, to provide for goods and services increases. That is the sense of the economic development throughout the history of humanity. Okay, and you need, for the development, you need power. Power is what people need. Well, in the past, you needed power from burning wood, then burning coal, burning some, fuels which are not renewable. Now we think about renewables and so on and so on, but we'll need more and more. That's not something which is unique for Europe. This is rather the rule of a game, as it is, and the presidencies or the European Union, as at large as it is, will have to find the sources. The problem here is that we have or had relied so much on the Russian resources, on the Russian fuels. And now we will have to pay to cover a pretty extensive cost of, redesigning our economic models and our technological models, shifting from the Russian gas and oil to something else. And when you look at the reality, well, you will find out that we have had very sober, very reliable policies which were imposed by the European Union, which in past had been so much criticized. Many people would say, "Well, why are we investing so much in renewable sources of energies, where there's so much cheap stuff in Russia, and we can get from Russia what we need?" Well, even the Germans, who were so keen on developing the Nord Stream and the pipelines from Russia, invested so much in the renewables that nowadays they are not in a desperate situation, but rather in a situation where well, they have a problem, but that problem is solvable. Okay? The only problem with the European engine of the European economy, that is German economy, is that they are so unwilling to invest again in the nuclear plants. They are so much allergic to it that, nobody knows whether that would be an option for them. It's rather difficult for the European Union to impose something like that on the member state. But, in my opinion, sooner or later, they will have to reflect, the Germans will have to reflect on it, and that would improve the conditions in the entire European economy. Why? Well, when you take into account the Polish economy, Germany is our most important trading partner.
Absolutely.
Okay, and whenever they are in trouble, we are in trouble as well.
Absolutely agree. This is our neighbor, but also our biggest trade partner and a huge engine in Europe. And it looks a little bit absurd with the fact that they were trying to shut down their factories and but hopefully it will change, and maybe some atomic plant will happen in Poland eventually. But it's been talk and a debate for so many years, and the aspect of fear of a society as well. But
no, it's not that much that's significant anymore, and I think it's not a part actually of the presidency agenda, but it's quite interesting. Well, Poland is already executing the plan to be able to produce energy from nuclear plants, and that is the second approach, by the way, because at the beginning of this century, Poland had also a plan to invest in the nuclear energy, but it was abandoned at some moment of time.
Interesting. And the question why, that's probably a different topic for
no. That's very shortly, without digging into it, money. It's very costly an investment. And at some moment, the forthcoming governments, whatever it was, decided to not to spend money on it.
I see. Right now, of course, it would be needed, but as I said, it's always somehow trying to put lots of things together and find this common ground and a balance in it. And this will be Polish task to do for at least some time. Is there anything, Professor, you would like to add to sort of somehow finalize the economic challenges or the future of this presidency?
No, because I think I've already shared with our viewers the most important challenges, and then I even was able, because of your hospitality, to explain the economic models and the problem with it to our viewers. Well, the most important takeout to understand the reality here is that the economic development is based on the development of the population and the development of, technology. And, we are rather limited when it comes to the access to the, ever-growing population. We are not an ever-growing population. However, we can rely on the, incoming skills, on incoming intellectual qualities of many people who are coming here to Europe and are willing to work. But no. Let me finish up that point. But we have to invest heavily in the technology.
And investing in the technology is altogether also connected to what you said before, the accumulating talents, because we very often forget about the fact that even the power of US is based on the fact that this culture is so accumulate inside, and equal, that it is very easy. If me and you go to US tomorrow, in 2 years, we can already feel Americans and add our intellectual impact to this country. And this accumulating talents is, I know, for example, for Singapore or for China, is a challenge and something which they want to somehow mimic as well. But as we know, it is for any foreigner, even very talented, it is much easier to find yourself new and even patriotic to US because of the easiness of the society, the fact that everyone is an immigrant, and the language, which is much easier than the Chinese language, and feeling at home there or feeling patriotic to China.
Yes, that's exactly. The Americans are very hospitable. And they, many people who went there and who understood the society know that they are not that much interested in your uniqueness, but rather they are very much willing to treat you at par with themselves from the very beginning of your stay in America. And that is a wonderful part of that American approach to you. And we'll have to do our best in Europe to make it also possible for the Europeans and for the people from elsewhere, talented people from elsewhere, to feel the same when they are here.
Absolutely, I fully agree here, because this is also the source of power in a form and a source of development, in people. Professor, thank you very much for sharing this all with me, but also, of course, with viewers of Common Sense Generation. I do hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We touched lots of different topics, but it is so much important to understand, not only for people in Europe, but I think for the international audience. Thank you very much for watching our show, and I thank Polish National Foundation for making this video podcast possible. Stay tuned. This is Common Sense Generation. Common Sense Generation.